family fun.
Well, someone saw it and ask if everything alright. I tell the brethren, no, everything not alright and everything can't alright. Who want done this mass wearing in Jamaica? Who would fit dead I go dead and who not go dead just for just live? With either you intellectual fools trying to tell us how to live our life. You are so smart, but you haven't found the cure for cancer. You are both all out in a line and putting the Jamaican people in abject fear and driving us all to poverty. What have you done for all those who you have laid off and make them business close early? Jamaican people need to wake up. I'm done with Jamaican people need to wake up. But now we're no mask. A man no for mask no make for man. So hear this.
All right. I'm going to read something before I introduce our guests, and I quote. Butch's comment is impatient of further interrogation. It is something that I think requires deep analysis. What are his motives? Did he want to start a debate? So said music analyst and our good friend, Clyde McKenzie. Now, you would have heard what we just heard just now. I think everyone has heard that. And of course, he objected to wearing masks and said some other things. Mr. McKenzie is with us now. Good morning, Clyde. Welcome to Smile Jamaica. It's morning time. I hope the quote that I gave just now was correct because it is attributed to you. And if it is correct, could you explain what you mean by it's impatient of further interrogation? What does that mean?
Okay. I think, first of all, I would like to say, Neville, that we need to get it right out to begin with. That COVID is dangerous and it's deadly. It's not something to play with. And for me, protecting oneself is not a masquerade. It's not a fake. It's not a joke. Okay. That said, I think we need to analyze some of our methods of communication, some of our messaging. Because clearly what is happening is that we might not be getting sufficient buy-in in terms of what we are trying to get people to do. And that, I think, might be the big danger in terms of our trying to address this very serious problem. Now, I think that, for one, we might have to be a little bit more nuanced in terms of how we deal with the message of wearing masks and these kinds of things. Because I think maybe in some quarters there are people who misunderstand. And there are some people, because Buju is representing a school of thought, which is not really new. There are many others in the society, prominent persons, who have not gotten the kind of publicity that he had, who have been advocating just opening up the thing, although they've not been saying don't wear any mask. They've been saying open up the thing. We got to really get people out there to see whether, we can develop a kind of immunity to this kind of thing. There's the whole argument about herd immunity and all of that. Now, I think that it is important that, for example, Dr. Garth Rattray wrote a very good art.
Responding.
Yes.
As somebody who had COVID himself.
Well, and it's not a pretty thing. And you see, what has to happen is that Buju has his right to say whatever he wants to say. But at the same time, we need to be able to keep the messaging going.
Right, but also, Sir Clyde, with rights come responsibility, eh?
With rights do come responsibility, and therefore, what has to happen is that we have to make sure that we have our messaging, which will counteract the things that he might be saying. So you need to first of all determine what is the reason, the causes for this kind of behavior, and then you make the necessary intervention.
I want to ask you something, Sir Clyde, because since March of this year, and even before, we've been hearing about COVID. ever since it was discovered in Wuhan, we took our time and we waited until it touched our shores on the 11th of March this year, when our first case was reported. The Ministry of Health and Wellness has been repeating the messages ad nauseum: mask up, wash your hands, physical distancing, especially as the WHO widened their guidelines and broke new information. I want to ask you if you think it's really a matter of messaging, or is it a matter of dissent? Because some people are aware and are receiving the messages, but they're just not doing it either because of COVID fatigue. They don't think it's going to reach them just can't bother. So is it a matter of messaging, or is it a message of behavior?
No, well, put it this way. Messaging is just one form of intervention, because you're not going to reach everybody and convince everybody. As you pointed out, there are some people who just are conspiracy theorists, and they believe that this argument about COVID and the dangers of COVID is something that is manufactured. How we get around that is a matter of, strategy, if we can get around it. So, you have different groups of people who are resistant to this kind of thing. In the United States, we see a big pushback against it because for political reasons, there are persons who don't want to accept this, or who naturally and instinctively believe that this is something that is made up by the deep state. So you have this kind of residual distrust that is there, and it is something that you find in all societies, where you have people who are going to be of the opinion that what you're hearing about these things are contrived and nothing really don't go so.
You said, I'm sorry to jump in, but you said earlier that you're not going to reach everyone, and I accept that. I said this morning more than 200,000 dead in the United States, more than 200 dead in Jamaica. That's real. That is not something that I make up.
You can't get real. You can't get real than that. But some people, even with that kind of evidence, they're still not convinced.
So let me ask you, Sir Clyde. Even with we see the numbers, we hear the messaging. I hear you talk about the conspiracy theorists, but there seems to be also widespread apathy. In terms of the messaging, what do we do differently? Is it that we start to focus more on community-based messaging? Do we need to go into the nooks and crannies? What is your suggestion for an approach that will reach and convince more? Is it that we need to have a campaign where folks who have suffered with COVID do testimonials? What do we do to try and elicit the kind of compliance that we need to be able to stem this thing?
Testimonials are definitely something I think we should be going for. People who have had it, who have really suffered as a result of it. That's one. There is, for me, there's also an issue in terms of framing. I think how we frame the message is important. And I think, and this is not just local, one of the things I hear people say, is that when I say people wear masks, and I say people do all the things and then get COVID. And what that is suggestive of is a certain kind of cynicism, because people see people who have followed the protocols and they figure that it has failed. When what they don't understand is that this measure, the following of the protocol, is not a total guarantee. What it does is it minimizes your risk,
reduces your risk
of contracting this infection.
Yeah, we're run out of time. We're run out of time, Sir Clyde. But I do have one more question. What I read earlier was it said October 24, days ago, and you said, and again I hope they quoted you right. It said what you heard. You would need more significant examination before coming to a conclusion. I quote what you said because I'm such a fan. I don't want to come across as slapping Buju down in public or being an apologist. Have you come to a conclusion? No?
Well, my conclusion is clear, Bertis. One, this is, and I stress that, I made that point in the article. It just wasn't carried that this is a dangerous and deadly ailment, and we can't play around with it. So that is without question something that we have to say. Now, I didn't want to make it personal about him or anybody else, but the message is clear. This is something that is very dangerous. You can't play with it. You have to, and the point is, if we are saying, even if you don't believe, even if I were an agnostic and say I don't think that mask work, how harmful would it be to wear the mask, right? If people say the mask work, if it don't work, that's one thing.
Right.
But we know, and we are seeing the evidence that it does work, right? Now, it doesn't work 100% of the time. Not hardly anything works 100% of the time.
Right.
So what we need to understand is that because we don't have absolute guarantees, is no reason for taking unnecessary risks.
Yeah.
That is the message.
Totally agree.
Huh?
Totally agree with you. And thank you so much for
That
speaking
should be
with
the
us.
message.
Yeah, man.
That once you see that you don't have total protection, you're not going to say, well, I'm going to walk in the middle of the street because, I can't kill me anyway. No, you're still going to take the measures that would reduce your chances of being hit by the car.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
fair enough. Thank you. Always good to see you.
Absolutely.
And
Thank
stay
you, Sir
safe.
Clyde.
All right?
Great to see you.
Yes.
Great, sir. Thank you.
Cultural commentator, Clyde Mackenzie.
Guys, it's not comfortable, but it really is the best tool we have right now to save our lives.
Yeah.
You wear one, I wear one, cuts our chances by at least 50%
Yep.
of contracting this
And it
thing.
is more uncomfortable for us. Why? Because we wear glasses, and sometimes
Forgot the whole thing,
I mean,
see.
every time I come
Windshield
out of my
wiper.
car, I have to take off my glasses because it foggy.
But it's necessary.
Yeah, you can't see it.
Necessary.
But I still have to do it. And the places, we're still a little indisciplined in the sense that you have a big sign on the door, no mask, no entry. But I go in and nobody have a mask inside here.
Come out. That's what you need to do.
No, I just put on my mask. I always have on my
Yeah,
mask.
but it works when
Yeah,
both
I
parties
know.
have it on.
Just be careful.
I mean,
What's next?
guys, seriously. Anyway, after the break, a Jamaican dancer makes it to Netflix. What? We'll be right back with more.
How come I'm here the biggest?